Hi there, Smart Driver, talking to you today about speeding, and speeders. Particularly, we're going to talk about the issue of speeding cameras, representation, policing without representation, essentially is what it's called, is that they're putting in place this automated policing, and it is a political hot potato, and this is the reason why a lot of jurisdictions and places are getting rid of them instead of putting them in place when it works. And it does work. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you have any questions, leave a comment down in the comment section. A few people are here already. Elevator Fan is tuning in from Monticello, Indiana. Sean is tuning in from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. And who else? Marion is tuning in from Vancouver, and Corey is here from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Corey is the moderator, does an excellent job of getting up the videos I suggest you have a look at for more information on the questions you ask. And if you do have any questions about passing a driver's test, becoming a safer, smarter driver, or starting a career as a truck or bus driver, we can help you with all of that. And hello to your mom too, Elevator Fan. So we're talking about that, and it is a controversial topic. And if you look at any traffic safety professional organization, they're going to say that speed and speeding is one of the top reasons for crashes. But interestingly enough, as I will say in the presentation, they never talk about the definitions of speed, because there is more than one definition of speed. But for most organizations, their definition of speed is exceeding the posted speed limit, which they believe is the magic number that you should be doing. However, there are many roads, and I can point out many roads that I've been on where the posted speed limit is high, and there is no way that you can drive that speed on that roadway. So you need some discretion in how fast you drive. In addition to that, there are many factors that influence how fast people drive on our roadways. Cars, for example, new cars, Tracy's Audi, the 2014 Audi S4 with the V6 supercharger in it. You do 100 kilometers in that and it feels like you're standing still. You do 100 kilometers an hour in my buggy, the 1998 Honda CR-V, and you feel like you are going Mach 1 in that, because you can feel the speed when you're moving in it. So the newer the vehicle, the less in touch, less tactical sensation, not tactical, what's tactile? That's the word that I'm looking for. Sensation that you have with speed and how fast you are traveling. And of course, the higher end cars that you get into, the less that you are in connection with how fast you are traveling on the roadways. And this is going to impact new drivers when they're driving, because they get into their parents' brand new vehicle and they really don't have a concept of how fast they're traveling on the roadways. Elevator Fan, the reason why people speed is because people are in a hurry and they think that it is fun. Yep, absolutely. There's many different reasons why people speed and why they travel faster than the posted speed limit on our roadways, despite all the warnings on our roadways. And we'll talk a little bit about the culture of speeding, the culture of enforcement. Even Google has gotten on board with this in terms of warnings of police stopped along the roadways. Last summer, when I was driving across the United States of America from Washington State all the way to Michigan, I was running the GPS on the phone, and anytime there was a police officer parked along the side of the roadway, there was a warning on the GPS. And of course, the other culture of speeding, this can relate to the United States of America. It is legal, except in 2 states in the United States, that you can have radar detectors in your vehicle. However, know that if you do get pulled over by police and they know that you have a radar detector in your vehicle, you can't hide it. They're going to deem you what is called a professional speeder, and that you are looking for police. And it is unlikely that they're going to use any discretion if they do find that you have a radar detector in your vehicle. Know that if you are using one in the United States of America. Now, as I said, You just run your GPS and Google whatever maps program you're running on your phone and those types of things. They will warn you that there is a police officer speed trap along the roadways and whatnot. I mean, most of the time it's not even a speed trap. It's just a police officer pulled over assisting somebody on the roadway or those types of things. But those warnings are available. And again, this ties into the culture of speeding and our psychological game of trying to get away with speeding when we're on the roadways. And they talk about enforcement, they talk about this changing behavior. It doesn't change behavior at all. If you're a speeder and you're speeding and you get a speeding ticket, regardless of whether it's from a police officer or whether it is from a traffic camera, you know, the thing about traffic cameras is, or speed cameras rather, we're not talking about red light cameras. Red light cameras, you know, I believe in red light cameras because too many people run in red lights at intersections. Speeding cameras, on the other hand, you know, I'm kind of 50-50 on them, but we know where they're located, right? We can figure that out, where they're located. And if you have a high-end dash cam in your vehicle, it will tell you where red light cameras are. My Garmin dash cam, which is probably 5 years old at this point, will tell me where red light cameras are at intersections. And probably, you know, the high-end dash cams now are going to tell you where the speed cameras are as well. So this ties into the whole culture of speeding that, you know, you did something wrong. If you got caught, it's not that you're going to see it as, oh, I'm a criminal on the roadway, because speeding is seen as a victimless crime. It's like tax evasion. Nobody got hurt, right? It's the same thing with speeding. Nobody got hurt. So therefore it's okay that I speed, and it is seen as a technical offense when people are speeding. Mary, why did they only give the offending driver only 7 days prohibition and car taken? I don't think it's long enough because they get their car back, and we'll do the exact same thing. You're talking about excessive speeding is what you're talking about, Marion, in terms of people that are doing, I believe it's 30 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit. In Ontario, they call it stunt driving, but it's excessive speeding. It's 30 or 40. I can't remember whether it's 30 or 40. Maybe Corey can look that up. People do it all the time. You know, and different situations, you know, whether people are passing other vehicles on 2-lane highways and whatnot. I'm guilty of it, you know, especially when I'm trying to pass somebody or trying to get around them and not get into the other lane and whatnot. You know, but it's only for short bursts of time. It's, you know, and the other article that I'll show you that was sent out by Turf, where they're going over all of the evidence about speeding and whatnot, and that, you know, speeding increases in speed limits, which we saw here in British Columbia, I don't know, about a decade ago on the Trans-Canada Highway, where they increased the speed limit from 100 kilometers an hour to 120 kilometers an hour. You know, they said, oh, they rolled that back. They never rolled that back. That information is false. So, you know, when you have freeways, there's no reason with modern cars and modern tires and safety features on roadways and features on cars and those types of things that you can't drive 70 miles an hour on a freeway and do it safely. It can be done safely. Paul, my friend, can't wait for your via train to Vancouver. Everyone is always in a hurry. Yes, they are. Yes, they are, my friend. Going back to what Marion was saying about people getting a speeding ticket, people getting a speeding traffic camera ticket. The other piece about the traffic camera tickets is that there's no points. It has no effect on your insurance, and there's no record, okay? It's simply a monetary fine. This is the other problem that I have with it. It's just a monetary fine. I mean, if it's just a monetary fine, it's $150. Now you figured out where the red light camera is. I mean, really, it doesn't affect behavior. It doesn't affect driver behavior. And it's the same thing with traffic tickets. If you get pulled over by a police officer and you get fined, studies have shown that people, it has a short-term effect. It only lasts about 60 days, 90 days, and then people are back to driving the way that they were previously. It does not have a long-lasting effect because people view traffic tickets as a technical offense. And as well, if you look at our society and priorities that are in our life, say, for example, that you have a meeting and you're running late, it is viewed more in a negative light for you to be late for that meeting than it is for you to speed. So in other words, you want to show up on the meeting on time, and it is okay to speed to get there on time. And, not to mention that all of this behavior, driving behavior, is reinforced every day in popular culture. There's just nothing that says otherwise, that, being cool is driving the posted speed limit and 2 hands on the steering wheel and, doing all the safety techniques and whatnot that you should be while you're driving a car. Nothing in popular culture tells you to do that. So it's not being reinforced on any level other than the legal system. And I'll talk a little bit about that in terms of the presentation when I get over to the presentation here. Corey says different jurisdictions have different tolerances. For Manitoba, stunt driving is when you exceed the posted speed limit by 50 kilometers or more, 7-day vehicle impoundment, license suspension of up to a year, fine of up to $5,000, impact to your safety rating, increased license insurance costs. Yeah. So 50 kilometers an hour is considered stunt driving. So if you're in 100 kilometers an hour and you're doing 150, and anybody who's driven for more than a couple of years, that any vehicle built in the last 20 years does 150 kilometers an hour without even batting an eye. I mean, that's only 90 miles an hour. So it's when people are saying these are excessive speeds. Yeah, they're excessive speeds, but if you're on an interstate at 5 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody else out there, as some smart drivers have said over the years on comments left on the channel and whatnot. There's nobody out there. There's no speed limit. And as well, in addition to that, here where I live in the interior of British Columbia, there are no police between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. on our roadways. Let me just repeat that. There are no police between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. unless it is an emergency or there is a crash. There is nobody policing traffic at those hours because they simply do not have the personnel, the police personnel, to police traffic during those times. Elevator fan, street racing is considered reckless driving. Yes, it is, and it's also dangerous. And I believe that street racing, illegal street racing, we're talking about the Fast and the Furious kinds of people and whatnot, that can also be charged under the criminal code. So there's, in terms of law and legalities, there's the Highway Traffic Act, which polices most traffic offenses, but here in Canada, drink driving is charged under the criminal code of Canada, which makes it what would be considered a felony in the United States of America. And you have a criminal record if you are charged with drink driving in the country of Canada, which is different than other countries in the world. Other countries in the world, you are charged under the Highway Traffic Act. You are not deemed a criminal if you are charged with drink driving in the United States or Australia or other countries in the world. Whereas Canada is different in that sense. So you can't travel, you can't get a passport. I think you can get a passport, but you can't travel into other countries because you have a criminal record. All right. Married Abbotsford police pulled over a guy doing 190, brand new car. The cops had to throw a spike strip to stop him because he wouldn't stop for them. Yes, but Marion, one at the same time, those are sensational incidents where people get caught and people don't stop for police. And obviously there's something else going on there when they have to throw out spike strips, because usually they don't. I mean, if people are doing that kind of speed, 190 kilometers an hour, that's seriously excessive speeding. And if, it depends on where they are, what road they're on, or those types of things. But that's just crazy. That's just a crazy amount of speed. Paul, once in my entire life did I ever get a speeding ticket, which was only a minor speeding ticket. All right. Yeah. And most people don't get pulled over, right? Most people don't get a speeding ticket because for whatever reason. And it also depends where you are, how many police are available for policing traffic and those types of things. It's been a long time since I've got a speeding ticket. As I said, the last time I got a speeding ticket was probably 5 years ago. And I got a speed camera ticket in the province of, I believe it was Saskatchewan, and it was $150. There was no other repercussions for that. And I just paid it, because, so we come back to speeding, exceeding the posted speed limit above, so what are the definitions of speeding? Driving faster than the posted speed limit, driving faster than me. Because say, for example, that you're in a snowstorm and everybody's driving slow and somebody goes whipping past you, then, they're going faster than you. Are they speeding? Yes, potentially they are, because they're driving faster than the conditions of the roadway will allow. And then, the traffic flow, we know that there is always a traffic flow which is faster than the posted speed limit, which is usually, in the United States, is usually 5 miles an hour above the posted speed limit. So if the posted speed limit is 60 miles an hour, most people are going to drive 65 miles an hour. It's unlikely that you're ever going to be pulled over if you're keeping up with traffic flow, because Tim is not here, who is a retired RCMP officer, and it's as he says, the nail sticking up is the one that gets hammered down. So if you see a car weaving in and out of traffic and they're speeding, that's the car that's going to get pulled over and get a ticket. And when we see speed traps along the roadway, they're not looking for the people that are doing 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit or 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. They're looking for the people that are doing 20, 30, 40 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. People that are really kicking it. That's who they're looking for when they set up speed traps. And the other issue with this now, not so much with speeding, but with drink driving, and we can talk more about this in upcoming live streams about drink driving and the difficulty of catching people now, is that they used to have set up drink driving breathalyzer tests all the time. But now the people that do it, and we know this as traffic safety professionals, that it's only about 10% of the population that are recidivists. So the people that drink drive, they do it all the time, again and again and again and again and again. And they've gotten very clever with social media and phones and those types of things that, if the police set up a breathalyzer and they're going to breathalyze people in a certain position, within 10 minutes, their location is known, and the people coming out of the pubs, they just look at their phones, they have apps, they have chat groups and those types of things. They just look at their app and they know exactly where the police are, and they just go in another direction. And if you want proof of this, go to any small town in the spring after the snow is melted and just look at the ditches and look at how many beer cans and bottles and alcohol containers are in the ditches from people throwing out beer cans and beer bottles and those types of things. We like to think that MAD and other grassroots organizations are having they're being effective in what they're doing and they're bringing about change, but unfortunately they are not. These people who are doing this, they are simply getting better at not getting caught when they're drinking and driving. So we're talking about speeding, speeders, and speed, and what impact that has on driving. And this has always been my issue is that when people say, oh, speed kills, it does. There's no doubt about it. But if you keep saying that we need to reduce the speed limit, as we've been doing, where we have school speed zones that are 30 kilometers an hour, 20 miles an hour, we now have speed cameras, and we've reduced the speed limits in most cities to 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour. Where is it gonna end with this I hate cars urban planning model that we are currently in? This trend that is now happening, where is this going to end? How much slower can we possibly go in cars? Elevator fan. I have seen drivers hit their brakes whenever they see a cop. Yep, they do it all the time. Unfortunately, when they hit their brakes, if the police do have a radar gun pointed at them, they've already got them. Paul, for me, when I was speeding was because I was making a delivery, had a very hard time, and when I got back to my vehicle, my mind lost it, and that was years ago. All right, excellent. So we're talking about speeders, and speeding. I got a presentation here for you. We'll get over to that. I'll spend about 8 or 12 minutes going through that, and then we'll come back. We'll spend the remainder of the hour talking about that, and I'll go a little bit through the article, the newsletter. I guess it's a newsletter that TIRF, the Transportation Injury Research Foundation, put out, and I kind of want to go through it because there's a few things that I have problems with in terms of the research and what the message that they're putting out. Of course, it always is when it's supposedly an independent charitable organization, but it's not an independent charitable organization. It's funded by the government. It's funded by insurance companies. And one of the things that I've learned about traffic safety is that you don't tell people what they don't want to know. Okay, and if the world is saying that speed kills, then we got to go with that message, and we got to continue to hammer that message home so that we can get people to slow down. You put people in cars, they're empowered, they like to speed, they like to go fast, they like the thrill. This is why people ride motorcycles. This is why people drive pickup trucks. They like the thrill. They like the excitement. Speed, speeders, and speeding, and talking about traffic crashes. This is what we were talking about, and there is no doubt that traffic crashes are dangerous. They cause a lot of injuries. They cause a lot of deaths, and I've talked about these statistics previously in the United States of America. And the United States of America, oddly enough, does not have a good traffic safety record. In the world and first world countries, the United States of America ranks pretty low in terms of traffic safety. There are countries in the world that have way better traffic safety ratings than the United States of America. In the United States of America, more people die in traffic crashes every 18 months than all the soldiers sent to war during the Vietnam crisis between 1963 and 1975. So in a 12-year war, there were fewer people killed than all of the people on the roadways in the United States of America in an 18-month period. For those of you new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I was a truck driver in the 1990s. I held freight between Ontario, Canada, and the United States. Became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997. Most of my experience in driver education is with larger vehicles, buses, trucks, air brakes, logbooks, those types of things. The reason I did that is because it just paid better than being a car instructor. However, teaching people how to drive a transport truck or teaching them how to drive a school bus, you have to know all of the basics. All the car stuff is applicable to the higher class license. For anybody who's going for a tractor trailer license or a school bus license, you got to know all the basic road rules of driving a car. 2006, I graduated from the University of Melbourne in Australia with my doctorate in legal history, which is the study of policing, courts, and prisons, and my expertise is in policing as it relates to traffic. While I was going to university in Australia, I drove buses for Greyhound and one of the regional bus lines there. And in 2015, I started the online YouTube channel, which has been 10 years. Crazy to think. We're still talking about traffic safety, still talking about defensive driving and helping people to be smarter, safer drivers on the roadway. And if you want to know more about me, more about the Smart Drive Test website, you can check out the Smart Drive Test autobiography over the website. Good stuff to have a look at. Defensive driving for new drivers. Check out the podcast. The link will be down in the description there. And as well, unexpected events on a driver's test that could potentially fail you. Those things that could pop up, because driving is always changing. There could be a traffic crash. There could be a sewer main that breaks, and then there's construction. The road would be flooded. They'll have to take you down another direction. Garbage trucks along the route and those types of things. These are all chance events that potentially could cause you to mess up your driver's test. So have a look at that video and be completely prepared on the day that you go in for your driver's test. Legally speeding, this is Sean. He's over on Twitter. He is a retired police officer in Ontario, and somebody asked him if you could legally drive, and so obviously, legally drive 5 to 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit. So what the person is asking a retired police officer, you need to know where the question is being directed at and who is answering the question, because police officers had a duty of carrying out black letter law, right? What is the law that's written in the book? This is the law. There is discretion on the part of police officers and those types of things, but the question is very specific in terms of, can you legally drive with traffic flow? The answer is no. Exactly what Sean said in his response to this comment. You cannot legally drive over the posted speed limit because it is the law that this is the posted speed limit and that's how fast you have to drive. Now, he does go on to say in the comment and in the response that if you do drive and keep up with traffic flow, which is going to be 5 to 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit, or you're in the United States of America and you're driving 5 to 7 miles an hour over the posted speed limit and keeping up with traffic flow, as long as you're not moving in erratically through the massive traffic that's on the roadway, it's unlikely that you're ever going to get pulled over. And as I said in the introduction, police are not looking for the people that are keeping up with traffic flow and being predictable on the roadways. They're looking for the speeders that are doing excessively, are They're looking for the speeders that are driving excessively faster than the traffic that is on the roadway. That's who they're looking for. They're looking for the people that are doing 20, 30, 40 miles an hour more than the posted speed limit. They're looking for the people in Canada who are driving 30, 40, 50 kilometers an hour above the posted speed limit. Those are the people that they're looking for when they're driving. The best kept secret in traffic safety is that throughout time, we have not reduced the number of traffic crashes. And we can't really prove this. I cannot prove this statement, but I know it in my heart of hearts. We have not reduced the number of traffic crashes that happen on our roadways. We have not reduced the number of injuries. But we can't prove that because there are so many people involved in recording traffic crashes that happen on our roadways. Not to mention the number of people who don't report crashes. They bang into somebody on the roadway and they get out, they look at the car and there isn't any damage. They exchange information and the person takes it to an auto body shop and they say, oh, it's going to be $500 to fix, and the person shoots them $500 and it's never reported. Police are never called. Now, the other aspect of this is in many crashes, police never attend the crash scene. You have, if there's less than $5,000 worth of damage, which is basically nothing on a new car now, what happens is you take the other party's information and the next day you report to a crash reporting center and have authorities take note of the damage that was done to your vehicle and you file an insurance claim. So police are never involved and the crash is never reported. Or it's not written down and documented and collated and that information is never anywhere. So we cannot prove this information. And I'm not the only one saying this. However, when there is a death, that is documented. We have a body. We now have something concrete that we can hang on to. So traffic fatalities can be measured and they are collated and calculated and put into databases and we can track that information. And it's easy to see, if you look at this kinetic energy chart, why increased speeds cause increased numbers of fatalities. Because when you increase speed in a vehicle, the amount of energy in the vehicle increases exponentially. So if you go from 20 kilometers an hour and you have X number of energy in the vehicle, and you go to 100 kilometers an hour, which is 5 times the speed, the speed has increased 5 times, but the amount of energy in the vehicle has increased by 25 times. So the likelihood of being killed in that crash increases exponentially. The seatbelts aren't going to save you. The airbags aren't going to save you. You are going to die in that crash because the speed is so high and there is so much energy in that vehicle. Same thing with reducing speed limits within cities. If you strike a pedestrian at 40 kilometers, if you strike a pedestrian at 70 kilometers an hour, 40 miles an hour with a car, the chances of that person surviving that crash are less than 20%. However, if you reduce speed limits to 25 miles an hour, what's 25 miles an hour? Like 40 kilometers an hour. Now the chances of that person surviving that crash increased 80%. 80% chance that they will increase the speed limit. 80% chance that they will survive that crash. This is why we're reducing urban speeds, because pedestrians are more likely to survive those crashes within the cities. So it's easy to point the finger at speed and say speed kills people. Yes, it does, because the energy in the vehicle increases exponentially. So it's easy to say that. In addition to that, it's easy to document that case because police attend the scene, ambulances, the information is recorded. Oftentimes there are lawyers involved, there's lawsuits, there's insurance companies. All that information is now recorded, and it's easy to track and easy to document and easy to write traffic safety profiles about those crashes. Okay? So definitions of speeding, as I was talking to you previously, is faster than the posted speed limit, driving faster than the traffic flow, which I said in Canada is 10 kilometers above the posted speed limit. In the United States is 5 miles an hour above the posted speed limit. Driving faster than me. In the wintertime, you're driving all nice and namby-pamby and safe on the roadways because it's snowing, and then somebody goes screaming past you, and you're like, oh my God, they're speeding. because they're driving faster than you, driving faster than conditions of the roadway. And the note there at the bottom, the statistic, the National Highway Traffic Safety Association in the United States said that in 2016 and 20 years up to that point in 2016, 1/3, 30% of all traffic crash deaths were related to speed, that people were speeding. But they never define what speeding is when they talk about these definitions of, or when they say that people are speeding and it caused a traffic fatality. Speeding has been an issue since horses were ridden on roadways, okay? And the transition from horses to motorized traffic at the beginning of the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th century, forever changed policing, forever changed laws, because people were driving fast and furious on the roadways. And of course, by the end of the 1920s, courts were so clogged up with speeding and traffic tickets that they had to increase police powers. And this is what we're going to talk about in terms of speed cameras after the presentation here, that speed cameras are not only increasing the powers of police, they're also increasing the powers of the state, because the police are now not in that equation of you being policed for speeding. It's simply an autonomous, nondescript, amorphous thing out there that is policing speeding and sending you a ticket in the mail. And usually the companies that are implementing the speed cameras are being outsourced to private industry. And this is the issue that people are having with speed cameras. It's not that speed cameras are being put in place, because most people, if you ask them, you say, are speed cameras a good thing? Most people would say, yeah, the speed cameras are a good thing, but it's the problem that it's private industry that's putting in place speed cameras. They're getting a cut, and then they're giving the rest of the money to the government, to the corporation, whether it's the municipality, whether it's the provincial government, the state government, or it's the federal government, whoever it is. But usually it's the state government, because this is all under the Highway Traffic Act. All right. Forever changed our rural and urban landscapes and automotive safety and driving culture. And we talked about driving culture in terms of Google, policing, getting caught for speeding tickets. It's more important that you're on time for the meeting than it is that you were speeding. That's not going to be frowned upon if you're speeding to get to a meeting on time. Case study, Australia, rigid and enforced speed limits, and they do have speed cameras. But if you look at their traffic safety record in terms of the number of traffic deaths in Australia, nobody looks at Australia and says, oh my God, look how much that they have reduced traffic fatalities in the country of Australia. But I will tell you from driving and living in Australia that very few people in Australia exceed the posted speed limit because of the widespread use of speed cameras in that country. The Autobahn, and this is one of the things that Turf was talking about, that in fact there are traffic fatalities on the Autobahn. Of course there's traffic fatalities on the Autobahn. You can't drive 200 kilometers an hour and have a crash and expect to survive that. Yes, you are going to have traffic fatalities on the Autobahn, and as people have pointed out over the years when I've talked about the Autobahn, there are large sections of the Autobahn that there are speed limits on the Autobahn. There are very few sections that don't have speed limits on it. But the one thing that Turf overlooks in terms of their biased approach to speed and speeding and traffic fatalities is Germany has one of the best traffic safety records of any industrialized country in the world. They're right up there with Sweden and Finland, Norway, other countries in the world that have very high safety rating records. Much better than Canada, much better than the United States. Germany is one of the top countries in the world, but they point out to the Autobahn, I go, oh my God, that's not safe. It's not true. Germany as a whole has a really good traffic safety record. Okay, the Trans-Canada BC, I talked about that, and the email from Turf says, oh, they rolled back their speed limits. They didn't roll back the speed limits. And anybody who's been on the Trans-Canada Highway and it's 120 kilometers an hour, there's no reason that you can't do 120 kilometers an hour on that highway. It is a good freeway. It's a freeway for the most part. Speed differentials. This is where you will get into trouble, and you can look at any truck driving forum on Speed limiters. Now there's another hot topic. Speed limiters. So companies limit the speeds of their trucks for two reasons. The first reason is fuel economy. First and foremost, they limit the top speed of their truck at 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour, 105 kilometers an hour. And trucking companies have been doing this since the 1990s, since electronic fuel injected diesel engines were implemented in big trucks in the 1990s. I have driven very few trucks, excuse me, in my career that were not speed limited. Most of them were. And the second reason is simply for issues of safety, because it doesn't look good when you've got a moving billboard going up and down the freeway that's doing 150 kilometers an hour. Most of the people who are making noise about speed limited tractor trailers are brokers, owner-operators, people that own their own trucks. Most of the information that they put out there is not true at all. I never had an issue with driving a speed-limited truck, right? They're slow anyway. It's not like you're going to accelerate out of an emergency situation with a fully loaded tractor trailer. It's just never going to happen. However, they are correct in terms of speed differentials, and this is where you get into trouble. And this is where people that are racing through traffic and weaving in and out of traffic and whatnot, this is why they get into trouble, because the speed differential between their vehicle and other vehicles on the roadway. So, talking about space and place, and we separating traffic in terms of two ways. We separate it physically with concrete barriers down the middle of the roadway is probably the most prominent way that we separate traffic. And then we separate it in terms of traffic lights at intersections and whatnot. And we know that intersections are dangerous because more than 40% of crashes happen at intersections. But it's not just speed and speed differentials that cause so many traffic crashes at intersections. It's also the place that we're most likely to encounter vulnerable road users. And in the world, 25% of traffic fatalities rather, are vulnerable road users. Kids on e-scooters, bicycles, motorcycle riders, pedestrians. This is the place at intersections where you're most likely to encounter vulnerable road users, and you're going to get into this speed differential that leads to traffic crashes at intersections. All right, so speed differentials. This is the other, the difference between a fixed object and your vehicle, a fixed object that isn't going anywhere. For example, a tree that you run into, right? The tree isn't moving. It's going 0 miles per hour, whereas your vehicle is doing 60 miles an hour. There's a big speed differential there. And this is what I talk about in terms of space management as the biggest tool in your defensive driving toolbox, that if you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. Policing speeding, speed cameras, the culture of driving. I talked about this in the introduction, that even Google is telling you where speed traps are, where police are along the roadways. We have dash cams now. Most of the high-end dash cams are going to tell you where the red light cameras are. Most of the high-end dash cams are going to tell you that there is a speed camera along the route. Radar detectors are only illegal in 2 states in the United States. So therefore, we have a culture where it's more frowned upon that we actually got caught for speeding than it is the fact that we actually got a speeding ticket. Let me just repeat that. It's more embarrassing that we got caught for speeding because we did something wrong and we were dumb and we didn't pay attention to all the warnings that there was potentially that we were going to get a speeding ticket. And also we have cell phones now, right? We're driving along the roadway and we see cops up ahead on, pulling people over for speeding and whatnot. We call our friend. We say, oh, they're set up here, right? And then the next thing you know, everybody knows. Or how many times have we seen the vehicle coming the other way and they're flashing their lights telling you that there are cops up the road? It happens all the time. So it is more embarrassing that you did get done in for speeding. Speed cameras. And as I said, you run your GPS. Google will give you a warning where they are along the roadways and those types of things. So the entire culture in which we live and everything in Hollywood films and those types of things tell us that it is cool to speed. And this is why people drive pickup trucks. This is why people ride motorcycles. They love the thrill of speed. Social driving, speeding up at yellow lights, being late for an appointment. Truck drivers are paid piecemeal. Delivery people are paid piecemeal. They're paid for the number of packages. So you deliver 25 packages over the course of the day and you're paid X number of dollars. You deliver 50 packages over the course of the day, you're paid exponentially more. So you're in a hurry to drive fast and deliver those packages and not stopping at stop signs. This is all part and parcel and ties into social driving and the pressures for you to actually speed when you're driving. Space management. As I said, if you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. In addition to that, it is not speed that causes crashes and traffic fatalities. It is the mismanagement of speed and space. And interestingly enough, one of the books, most of the traffic crashes that we think is two cars running into each other in a traffic crash that causes a fatality. Almost half of traffic crashes that result in fatalities are single vehicle collisions. And they're more likely to happen at night because people fall asleep, they're inebriated, they've been drinking, they've been taking drugs, and they're driving a car and they drive off the roadway, they drive into a tree, they drive into a hydro pole, those types of things, and it causes fatalities. Be proactive, be predictable. You're too close to other road users on the roadway and fixed objects. Space management, it is your biggest tool in your defensive driving toolbox that is going to keep you safe. It's not speed that kills people. Speed leads to fatalities, but it isn't the cause of the crash. The cause of the crash was way back here in something that you did wrong and you were too close to other cars on the roadway. You weren't in control. You were inebriated in some way. You were distracted in some way or doing something else that was goofy on the roadway that you shouldn't be doing. And essentially it boils down to the last definition of speeding. You were driving too fast for conditions of the roadway. Radar detectors. We had this conversation about radar detectors. I had this with one of the smart drivers a couple of years ago. I didn't really know anything about radar detectors, or there is the euphemistically called as hound dogs in the United States of America. And then I had to look into it and was corrected on this, that they are not illegal in the United States of America. You can have a radar detector. However, if you do get pulled over for speeding and you do have a radar detector in your vehicle in the United States, you're probably going to get a speeding ticket because police are going to deem you a professional speeder. Good luck in your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. GG, Port Coquitlam, people don't obey posted limits, and also they drive as they like. Yes, they do, and as I said, this is going to get worse, and the number of traffic fatalities amongst vulnerable road users on our roadways is simply going to increase. And the reason it's going to increase is due to the electric vehicles on our roadways, the scooters, the bicycles, people doing all kinds of crazy things, not wearing helmets. How many people riding an e-scooter do you see wearing helmets? And I hate to tell the, urban planners and engineers and all the other people that are responsible for slamming in bicycle lanes that this is simply going to increase the number of traffic fatalities on our roadways. It's not going to increase safety for people that are riding bicycles and e-scooters and whatnot. Elevator fan, if you speed throughout the duration of your driver's test, you will fail. Elevator fan, you're absolutely right. For the purposes of a driver's test, you have to drive the posted speed limit, and you are going to be the slowest vehicle on the roadway. And just another tip in keeping with what elevator fan is saying, because you're the slowest vehicle on the roadway, because you're driving the posted speed limit, you need to stay in that right-hand lane. And if you make a left turn on a multi-lane road, you need to move back over to the right lane after turning left, and the examiner will not tell you this. Know that for the purposes of driving. And if you're unsure of, where you're going to be, where you're going to be making left-hand turns at major intersections in and around the test center where you're going to be taking your test, and you're not taking driving lessons, then book one driving lesson with a driving examiner. Or with a driving instructor rather. I know that most of you are going to be taking driving lessons, but it is still incredibly valuable, because if you haven't taken driving lessons and you take one driving lesson with an instructor, he or she will take you on the test route in and around the test center. They will show you where the examiner will get you to do the slow speed maneuvers, and they will give you feedback on the skills that you need to improve to pass your driver's test first time. So if you're not taking driving lessons with an instructor, book one lesson and go out with an instructor. Gigi, Vancouver drivers are always road raging. Who knows why? Always rush hour traffic make it even worse. Yes. And the other space management, the tool in your toolbox that you want to keep in place all the time, 2 to 4 second following distance. If you use that, you're going to reduce your chances of having a road rage incident because you're not near anybody. And, you know, I can't say this, you didn't hear me say this, but keep up with traffic flow because it makes you more predictable on the roadways. If you are doing the posted speed limit out after you get your driver's license, I can tell you right now, you're going to encourage the wrath of other people because they are going to tailgate you, telling that you are going too slow on the roadways. Begin to understand the actions of other people on the roadways. They're communicating with you, whether they want to or not. If they're tailgating you, most of the time they're telling you that you are going too slow and they want to get around you and get in front of you, right? And in addition to that, just keep in mind that most people believe and would agree with the statement, I am a good driver. It's the other person that has to change. It's not me, even though what they're doing is potentially dangerous on the roadways. Gigi, what if you're driving during a test and you don't see a posted speed limit at the time? Should you drive at 50 kilometers an hour? Gigi, yes. In the province of Ontario and here in British Columbia, the posted speed limit, if you are inside the city and do not see a sign, it's 50 kilometers an hour. Outside the city on a highway, it is 80 kilometers an hour unless otherwise posted. Now, it's not that clear in the United States of America. Every state has a different minimum speed limit. Have a look at the frequently asked questions over at the Smart Drive Test website. I've gone through every one of the states and provinces and it will tell you what the speed limit is inside the city. Same thing. So for example, if you look up New York City, the 5 boroughs, and you're taking your driver's test there, Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Staten Island, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour unless otherwise posted in those 5 boroughs. Outside of those 5 boroughs, it's 30 miles an hour. And as I talked about, the reason for reducing speed limits to 25 miles an hour within the cities is if you have a collision with a pedestrian at that speed, their chances of survival are 80%. If you collide with a pedestrian at 40 miles an hour, which is 70 kilometers an hour, the chances of survival are less than 25% for that pedestrian who's struck with a car at that speed. It's not speed, it's the kinetic energy in the vehicle owing to speed, because the energy increases exponentially as the speed goes up. So this is why we're running around all the cities and we're reducing the speed limits so that we reduce traffic fatalities. But as I said, we're not reducing the number of crashes. We're not reducing the number of injuries sustained because of car crashes. Those are staying the same. But we don't keep that information so that we can't have a go at it. It's easy to go at traffic fatalities and it's easy to go at speed, but it's a much more complicated scenario than what people are laying out there. And remember, these organizations like TURF out of Ottawa and other, the National Highway Traffic Association in the United States, they all have an agenda. They all have an agenda and they all have politicians to answer to in terms of the reports that they're writing and the reports that are being received. Because as long as politicians maintain the status quo and nothing changes, traffic fatalities don't go up, don't go down significantly, then they're going to get reelected. And that's what they want to do in terms of traffic safety. Elevator fan, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio have a minimum speed of 45 miles per hour on the highway. Yes. Depending on, of course, what kind of vehicle you're driving. Because if you're on a state road or a tertiary road in the United States, elevator fan, and you're driving a tractor, farm equipment and whatnot, then obviously you can't be doing, you know, that vehicle is just not capable of doing 45 miles an hour. So you can do less on some of those vehicles, but you're correct. If you're driving a car, you should be driving the posted speed limit. I mean, unless you're broken down or something like that. Evan, an instant in which you can exceed the posted speed limit is getting out of the way of an unpredictable road user. Yes, Evan, that is correct, but not really. It's not something, you know, if the police pulled you over for speeding and you said, well, I was getting away from that road user back there that was being a dummy, the police are probably not going to accept that excuse unless, I mean, you've got something on dash cam or something like that. But I mean, again, most people have a dash cam in their vehicles now so they can pull up what's going on there. Epic, in New York City, it would be for residential road speeds is 20 to 25 mile an hour in kilometers. Yeah. Some states in the United States actually define speeding as 5 to 10 miles an hour over the limit, over the posted speed limit. Yes, that's exactly what it is. And again, so speeding, what is speeding? What is the definition of speeding that you are using? Because it's not a hard and fast rule of posted speed limits, right? I mean, if we're going with the black letter law, then it's a posted speed limit. But flow of traffic, we know that flow of traffic, and if you look at any driver's handbook and you read carefully the text in the driver's handbook, it will mention traffic flow and the speed of traffic flow along highways. It's not overt, it's not blatant. You have to look at it pretty hard, but it does talk about traffic flow in driver's handbooks. Epic in New Jersey, speeds are urban residential 25, 40 kilometers an hour, suburban districts 35, and it goes up posted rural. Highway undivided and divided 50 kilometers an hour and 55 miles an hour. Yes. So yeah, as I said, in the United States, it varies state by state. So look up your state, go over to the frequently asked questions on the Smart Drive Test website and look up your state and look at the speed limits there. And again, keep an eye on the posted speed limits as you're driving. And this goes back to taking your driver's test. Practice in and around the test center where you're going to be taking your test. That way you can figure out all these signs and know what the signs are and how fast you can drive on different routes in and around the test center, and you won't be caught out by, oh, well, how fast am I supposed to be going here, right? Do that and be successful on your driver's test first time. Gigi, I still try to figure out what's the difference between kilometers and miles. Yeah, it's pretty easy, Gigi. 30 miles an hour is 50 kilometers an hour. 40 miles per hour is 70 kilometers an hour, and 80 is 50. 100 is 60. Okay, it's that simple in terms of miles per hour to kilometers per hour. I try and do both to help people out because we have both Canadian and American drivers here on the channel. It's interesting because 100 kilometers an hour psychologically when I'm driving feels shorter than 60 miles if I'm driving in the States and I'm going 60 miles. 60 miles feels farther than 100 kilometers, which is weird because 100 kilometers is a bigger number. 100 is bigger than 60, but it feels longer when you're driving to cover 60 miles. So yeah, I always find that kind of an interesting little psychological mind trick when you're driving in the States as opposed to driving in Canada. And it also might have something to do with the roads in the United States because, you know, in the United States you can drive on interstate for miles and miles and miles and miles and never come off the interstate, never come off cruise, you know, if everything goes well, for sure. Whereas in Canada, especially here in Western Canada where I live, it's, you know, 4-lane road, 2-lane road, passing lane, 4-lane, 2-lane. It's a hodgepodge of roadways in terms of the Trans-Canada. It's not an interstate or a continuous freeway for any length of time here, which is always a bit of a challenge. And then, of course, driving in the mountains, you're up the hill and down the hill and around the corner and around the corner and down the hill and up the hill. So driving in the mountains is definitely challenging for sure. Speeding, speeders, getting speeding tickets, being policed, the culture of speeding, traffic safety organizations who are talking about speed cameras. And the biggest problem with speed cameras is political overreach. For people who are opposed to speed cameras, it is political overreach, is what it is. And there is a book, Crawford, the book is Why We Drive. He has a whole chapter on speed cameras and talks about speed cameras in Chicago. And not only is it political overreach, these speed cameras are open to political corruption, and there was corruption as reported in the Chicago Tribune. There was a huge investigative story about it, that the engineer, I think it was the early 2000s, I'll need to fact check that, maybe Corey could fact check that, but it was the early 2000s where speed cameras were being put in Chicago. The main engineer, the city engineer, was being paid $2,000 by the private corporation to put in speed cameras. So every speed camera that the city engineer put in within the city of Chicago, he was getting kickbacks of $2,000. Not to mention the incredible revenue that these speed cameras generate for municipal governments when they are put in place. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars annually that politicians are filling their coffers with, and none of this is transparent in terms of where it is going for traffic safety and other projects within our organizations. And of course, we're in a trust recession where we simply don't trust people, and I would argue that we are at an all-time low in terms of our trust for politicians and the management of these funds. Where is this fund? Where are these funds going? What are they being earmarked towards when speed cameras are being put in place? Not to mention the private companies that are manufacturing these speed cameras and selling them and putting them in place. It's the same thing with parking here where I live. I mean, most of this parking, not the policing, but the running of parking lots has been outsourced. And in Canada, it's been outsourced, and then they take a cut of the revenue from parking fines or the parking costs, cost to park wherever you're parking, and then the municipality gets a revenue share of that. So it's not even municipalities who are running these services that are being provided to the driving public anymore. And it's the same thing with speed cameras. It's not the municipality who's benefiting. It's not the constituents in the riding that are benefiting from it. And politically, it's just a hot topic when you put in place speed cameras, and Ontario is one of those places right now that it is a political hot potato, and they are getting rid of them because they know that if they continue to have speed cameras in place, they will not be re-elected. And we had the same issue here in British Columbia 2 decades ago, that they put in speed cameras, and the next government came in and said, we get elected, we'll get rid of all the speed cameras. And same thing with tolls. We had a toll on the Coquihalla Highway that was paying for that construction, and the next government came in and said, if we are elected, the toll on the Coquihalla Highway will be gotten rid of. And it's the same thing in the United States of America. People don't like paying tolls who don't live on the eastern seaboard. So if there are tolls put in place and the next government that wants to get elected comes into place and says, we will get rid of the tolls, we will get rid of speed cameras, there is a very high likelihood that they are going to get reelected. So it is a hot political topic in terms of speed cameras. It is very little to do about speed cameras being put in place, is very little to do with safety and and making traffic safer on our roadways. Gigi, speaking of parking, I can't understand why you have to pay to park your car on the side of the roadway for a few minutes. I think that's extortion. Gigi, you are not alone in that. Ever since parking started and they started to pay for parking, that there has always been controversy around parking and paying for parking and parking fines. And I wrote a better part of one of my chapters was on parking and the feud of parking in the early years of motor cars. 99, do examiners tell you to change lanes or no? They will tell you to change lanes if you're going to turn, but if you're making a left-hand turn and moving back over to the right lane, which is what you should be driving in as a new driver taking a test, they will not tell you to do that. So you have to do that on your own. And if you have any questions or uncertain about your driver's test, as I said, take one lesson with a driving instructor, and he or she will help you out with all of that and give you feedback on your driving and the skills that you need to improve to be successful on your driver's test. Elevator fan, if you go the right speed through the mountains, mountain driving can be easy. Sometimes elevator fan, depends what you're driving. The old buggy, and driving behind the big trucks and the Super Bs that are, grossed out at 140,000 pounds going up over hills and those types of things. And then, of course, you get the rain and the dirt and the sand and the guck and the yuck off the trucks and the cars. And it can be challenging. Absolutely can be challenging at times, no doubt. Corey, a corruption trial in Chicago focused on allegations that bribes were made by the Australian red light camera company Redflex to a city official, former Chicago transportation official John Bills. Yes, that's what it was. And it's documented at length in Crawford's book, Why We Drive. So have a look at that. 99, what's your favorite car? G-Class Mercedes. Love them. I just think they're so cool. I want a terrorist car. That's what I want. I didn't say that out loud. I just like them. Yes, Mercedes G-Class. Epic, one should know toll plazas 15 miles an hour, 25 kilometers an hour if you're using a normal ETC lane. However, if you encounter a toll plaza that has an open road tolling, you can actually go highway speed 55 kilometers an hour. Yes, so if you're driving up and down the eastern seaboard, in and out of New York and on the Jersey Turnpike, know that there are tolls. And, if you rent a car, just pay for the tolls. The toll card up front, it's cheaper. Trust me, it's cheaper. Okay? So, speeding, the culture of speeding, traffic fatalities, speed cameras, it is all political. Statistics, yes, speeding causes traffic deaths, but it is not as simple as looking at traffic safety and just looking at traffic deaths. It's a much, much more complicated topic that can have its own book. So we talked about it. We touched the surface, give you some insights into that, and hope you got some good information out of that and the culture of speeding and how it's viewed in our society. Have a great night, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. All the best. Bye now.